Hey guys, how's it going? I'm VaulSC. We're going to have a look at a game of infiNity between the new 012 faction and the classic YuJing faction. As you can see behind me, I've got my copy of Operation Wildfire finally, so we're doing a bit of unboxing back there, assembling the terrain, which is really cool. The new terrain, as many people have pointed out, is very good. It's very well designed. If you happen to be offloading a set of it and you want to sell it to me, I'll happily buy it off you. Because it'd be really cool to make a table of the new cardboard terrain and feature it in the bat reps. So hit me up if you're into that on Discord or something. So yeah, today's game is going to be between 012 and vanilla YuJing, and we are going to take a look at it. It's going to be on the mission Capture and Protect, which, like a lot of missions, is not really one of my favorite missions. The thing about this one is that it really is quite one-dimensional. It's all about really just going over the other side of the table. So you're starting either here or here, and there's these two objective areas, and what you've got to do is simply move over to the other side, grab the beacon, and then move as far back as possible. Preferably have it in the hands of your data tracker, preferably have it in your deployment zone, and stop your opponent from grabbing your one. This mission used to be a little bit more complicated, where you had to unlock the beacon, and the classifieds and the middle objectives mattered a little bit more, but now it really just is about this. And sadly, this is a mission which is very good for factions which have jammers. Unfortunately, we're about to play a tournament next month where it'll be Spec Ops, so we're practicing Spec Ops this game, and Spec Ops are apparently linkable, despite the really silly rules judgment that was made in the Interplanetario, as you guys may have heard about. But getting to that objective is going to be hard, because your opponent's going to have like jammers back here and back here where they can easily stop you or isolate you as you're trying to pick it up, right? Also, some factions have access to smoke and eclipse grenades, others don't, so those are very good. Some factions have better access to veteran than others to get around those jammers. Some factions are better with crazy koalas and mines than others, so it's a bit of a mismatch, really. I don't like the scenario because it makes the mission completion easier for some factions but not others. Let's just have a bit of an easier playing field where there are other things that you can go for to get the points if you're for some reason unable to grab the beacon itself from your opponent's side. I'll say more about the mission during the game. Let us go to the lists though, and we'll talk about what we're playing today. So 012, I've recently painted up my Gamma, so I wanted to run a list that had the Gamma in it. Gamma's not always the right choice. In fact, quite often it's okay to leave him at home because he's very expensive, and there are other things that can fulfill that HMG role, or that Feuerbach role even. Not in terms of the Feuerbach itself, but the ARO side of it. But we're cranking him out anyway, which does, I think, weaken this list overall, because I think that it would be better off with just a bit of a cheaper HMG option in general, really. Or maybe the Feuerbach. I'm not really 100% sure. Not that the Gamma's bad, it's just I don't feel like he's a totally optimal. Dakini TacBot, of course, allows you to cover a couple of different places with HMGs, although you may question whether it's necessary to have both of them in there. Maybe it's not. Dakini's a great cheap way of spending that SWC point, though. A couple of Varangians, you want at least one of them to back up the Upsilon. We've got the classic Sirius bot. There's nothing really in this faction that does much fast attack apart from this guy. You can point out the Beta Troop or even the big tag himself, maybe Drop Troopers, but there's nothing on the sort of equivalent level of the Bulleteer, for example. Which is a shame. Get plenty of bot cheerleaders, Alpha Lieutenant, which I find is good if you're forced to take first turn, and even if not, if you're going directly for second turn, it can be easier to defend if you've got two reserve troopers rather than one. Spec Ops is just the old classic, if I take this out of the way. So, Doctor, Engineer, Hacker, +1 whip, really common Spec Ops to go for, and I'll say more about that in my tournament prep video coming up next month, but if you're not putting him in a link team, or even if you are putting him in a link team, this is a good way of saving on a lot of the other troopers that you would otherwise have to include in your army, and it really shaves off the points, allows you to afford so much extra stuff. And since he's doing so much work, the YuDbot really handy for him. Delta, still trialing this Delta with Boarding Shotgun Panzerfaust. For the reasons I gave in my other videos, I still really like the idea of him. You drop him down. If he scatters off the table, you've at least got a relevant gun in your deployment zone with that long range to the other side of the table. But if you do land him, the Boarding Shotgun's going to be really crucial as a clutch, short range gun, potentially getting splash. 2 gangbusters, very good for defending and helpful for this mission because hopefully all the mad traps will deter enemies moving in on my objective beacon. Going to my opponent's list, which I've basically recreated from memory, and unfortunately haven't done a very good job because there's still a 0.5 SWCs and 6 points remaining. We didn't see the Guilong Assault Hacker show up this game, but I suspected that it was out there. He was running bots, and I couldn't see anything actually that was a hacker, unless of course he did have his Spec Ops as a hacker, but I don't think he actually did. I believe his Spec Ops was Doctor Engineer Mine Layer +1 Whip, although even that I can't really remember particularly well. What I do remember though is that there was a Xian Lieutenant. There was definitely a Celestial Guard control device with 4 Guangxi. There was definitely a Liberto Mine Layer. There was definitely Major Luna. There was indeed a Zhanying with Mad Traps. Interesting choice when, you know, you get the same job done for 7 points left, or 8 points less even, with the Guifeng Zhuang. So that's, I think, a little bit overcosted here to go for the Zhanying. You're not going to do a lot of fighting with him, to be honest. Basic Zen Shard Climbing Plus, very useful, backing up the Guilong Fort Observer. I'm not too sure if you need both of these in the same list. I would rather see one of these guys upgraded to a Ninja, but that's just me personally. Pangolin Minesweeper was in there, Flashball Spot for sure. Again, not sure if he had that Guilong Hacker or not because I didn't really encounter it. There was a point in the game where he had a camera marker that wasn't revealed, and I feel like he didn't reveal it because he knew that I had come nearby with a repeater in the form of the Sirius team. A couple of Shaolins to back up the Xian with Smoke and a War Core, and that's about all I can remember of this list. Pretty solid list, and to be honest, I feel like this list is superior to the 012 list that I've chosen for this game. Partly because of the mission, this defends much better against push attempts into that objective. Secondarily, it's just a bit more efficient with the troopers and orders, whereas I've spent a lot of points, for some things that may not do as well, like the Gamma and the Dakini TAC bot. Both of them combined, maybe not doing that role very efficiently. I might have got away with, say, 1 Omega Trooper, or even just 1 Dakini and dropped the Gamma for other things. But anyway, we're still going to make a game of it. Okay, so my opponent wins the dice roll and takes the table side that he prefers, which is going to be the side on the right here, because I've created a table that has this nice big tower which overlooks some really massive sections of the table, and especially over top of this objective is going to be really easy to defend, so he's taking that. I've decided to go for second turn specifically because I've got Strategos level 2 for my extra 2 reserve troopers, and this mission's easy to win with second turn if you can survive to the end. I feel like against this particular opponent I'm not going to suck up a lot of aggression from him, so if I keep everything alive at the end I should be able to shoot the thing that's holding his beacon, and maybe if I'm lucky go for his objective, or if not grab the classified. So I'm having to deploy first. On my extreme right-hand flank, we've got the Spec Ops here. The Upsilon is going to be deployed here. Shaolin Varangian Guard, a Shaolin Varangian over here. Flashball Spot over here. This is proxying as a Gamma, a Gangbuster with 1 Mad Trap there and the other Mad Trap, I think, close by to him. Again, just trying to defend this central objective. In fact, you can see where he's put the Mad Traps here and here. And that's also going to help defend the position of the Upsilon, which is going to come down in reserve, most likely there. The Spec Ops is attached to the Yud bot you can see over there. So that'll be in position to help out the Dakini, but also likely to help out the Gamma, which is likely to go here. Got the baggage bot here, another baggage bot here, flash pulse bot over here, covering this very thin line through past the objective towards my deployment zone, which is quite crucial. Note that there is actually an exclusion zone out here, so I can't deploy any further out with my gangbusters, and that's fine because I want to leave them closer to my side of the table for defense. Note that there's another Varangian here, and this Mad Trap is attached to the gangbuster. We'll see up on top of that building there, and of course this is the objective I'm trying to defend. Looking towards the middle, okay, so you'll see my Alpha at the back, another Flash Pulse bot helping to defend him, a Gangbuster on the roof who's controlling that Mad Trap and this Mad Trap, which also defends the bridge as well. Got the Sirius team over here. Plan with them is either to go up the walkway or around the flank here and get some damage done when it becomes my turn, but I have to hold back for a bit while he's having his first go. My opponent, this is his left flank over here. So we'll see Major Luna standing up at the top. This is, I believe, the Zensha, I think, hanging out on the building, ready to move down with Climbing Plus. Flash Pulse bot covering the left-hand flank over there. Shaolin Monk, this is a Guangxi. He's actually run out of Guangxi model, so he's using a Zanshi to actually represent that. Baggage bot at the back. These guys are the Mad Traps, controlled by the Zanying. One of them's there, one of them's at the top. Again, defending this bridge. We're both looking to do that. Lieutenant Sen Warrior up there. He's got a mine planted here next to the objective with the Liberto mine layer next to it, ready to move across towards my objective. So you'll see a bit of that later in the game. Looking at the top, so there's the Zanying, Sen Warrior with his own personal smoke generator right next to him, who we may have to restrain, otherwise he'll run into my Upsilon sniper. That Celestial Guard is actually the Spec Ops, whereas this random model here is actually the Celestial Guard. So it's a bit of a switcheroo. There's the Guangxi back there. Over here is the model that I believe was his Guilang assault hacker, but I'm not really 100% sure what the deal was with that guy. We'll investigate that later. So right-hand side of the deployment, Guangxi here, a control device. That is a mine generated by the Spec Ops on top of the roof. And this is a mysterious camo marker, which, again, I think is a Guilang. Okay, and then there's just another view of his side of the table. So he'll be starting off, of course, with impetuous moves from the Guangxis after I drop down -2 orders from Group 1 with my command token. My reserve trooper is the Upsilon sniper. Note that there is a saturation zone here and here and here, and as the Sen Warrior is up on the roof. So as Sen Warrior is shooting at me, will be -1 dice. We'll both be ignoring each other's, camouflage and smoke and that kind of thing. I'm hoping that with the help of bioimmunity, I can survive against Luna, drop prone as I go unconscious, and then the Spec Ops comes up and revives me. That'll help for me to maintain this position over the game and minimize the effectiveness of his smoke. So if you guys didn't see, because my camera's in the way, that's where the Sen Warrior is up the top there. Other reserve trooper, it's the Space Chief himself, the Gamma HMG. Sometimes the 4 works better, sometimes the HMG's better, but it's hard to know in advance. So there he is, looking all painted and stuff. Okay, so moving out over here, we've got camo marker. In fact, no, this is the Zensha reserve trooper, by the way, placed here. This other model back here, can't 100% remember what that actually was. It might have been a mine or something else, not 100%. Possibly was a Guilang Fort Observer over there. Or maybe this is the Guilang Fort Observer. Can't 100% remember which was which. So there we go. So we've got some moves out here. I think he forgot to place his war core, so that's gone in there. And starting the game with some impetuous moves around the right-hand side and around the left-hand side. We're restraining this Shaolin Monk with the help of a regular order, just because he didn't want to come up in the line of sight of the Upsilon and just die. So later in the turn, he'll be able to idle with the Shaolin Monk, put the smoke grenade down on top of the Sen Warrior, allowing the Sen Warrior to isolate the Upsilon with his shots without being hit by anything else, whether it's hidden deployment or the Gamma or whatever it may be. So here we go. My opponent goes for it straight away and unleashes the Sen Warrior, who is shooting through this little planter here, which is providing -3 to hit, which we both ignore, but -1 burst, which my opponent does not ignore. So it's 3 dice from the Sen Warrior versus 1 from my Upsilon. Sen Warrior will be hitting on 14s because he's basically ignoring everything. The range is correct. I'll be hitting on a 13 on 1 dice. So the hope is here that he'll either get 1 hit or 2 hits through, and if it is 2 hits, that I'll pass one of the armor saves and then go unconscious. I'm fine with going unconscious because it's very easy for me to revive this model with my Spec Ops. So that's the tactic. This is pretty common. Now, unluckily, this is quite serious in terms of the luck. The Sen Warrior does 2 wounds directly, which removes the Upsilon straight away, despite only having 3 dice, which is kind of painful because now it makes it much harder for me to defend for the rest of the game, and this only cost him 1 order to do. So I really was hoping for better luck than that, but unfortunately, this is going to happen a certain percentage of the time. Sadly, it did this time, so the Upsilon is lost. Game continues on. This now allows the smoke generating Shaolin to move across the bridge and start biffing some smoke further down. He's already got a smoke template there, so he's able to move past it and send something further towards the middle of the alleyway. This is to allow the Xian Warrior to go after my Gamma. So Xian Warrior now moving around. There's a smoke template here which covers the both of them. Xian Warrior moves along the walkway to this point, and then he starts firing at the Gamma. Gamma, of course, wants to soak up as many orders as possible without dying. So going for the dodge, but without moving anywhere with the dodge, just staying in cover. And unlike the Upsilon, the Gamma gets a bit luckier and manages to pass some dodge checks and take 0 damage from the Xian Warrior at all, which is great. So the Xian Warrior, busts a bunch of orders and has to move back. You may say, well, if that had been a Feuerbark and he had been returning fire, the Xian Warrior would have been in a lot of danger there. And we find out later that Xian Warrior is actually the lieutenant. So imagine that, right? With the Upsilon, I was firing a stun round because I wanted to shut down his run. But if he goes unconscious with the Xian Warrior, that's really, really bad. There is a Spec Ops nearby to revive him, but the Spec Ops would have to climb up and actually have to go through AOs to get there. So this is actually a riskier play than it actually looks. Thing is, though, with the Feuerbark, I would have been firing back on an 8, whereas the dodge is on a 14, and the goal is to not so much take that really gambling sort of play that I'll kill him, but slow him down for as long as possible. So considering the tactic and the strategy there that you're expecting from your opponent, if they're playing optimally, it's not actually too dangerous for the Xian Warrior, because you know that you're not going to be coming up against that much resistance. Anyway, coordinated orders moving Guangxi back into cover, and the Xian Warrior returns his trek back home. Then we've got this model which had deployed further out of field, moving over towards here, going prone behind this building. I believe this is actually the Fort Observing Guilang. By the way, love the new camo tokens that he's picked up. These are from Warsenal, I believe. I'm thinking of getting some myself because they are really cool. Note the position of the Xian Warrior as well, coming back to this spot. So Gamma ends up taking a wound as the Xian Warrior is retreating, and this does cause him to fall back out of line of sight as planned. He can take one more wound before he goes into NWI, and at that point I can start doctoring him up with my Spec Ops. But just admiring the paint job here, happy with the color choices, a little bit rough with the blending, but still he looks pretty cool. Okay, more Shaolin action moving in under the bridge. Alrighty, and walk over here. We've also got the Liberto mine layer moving out towards the midfield, setting up closer to the middle of the table, ready to make a push in for my objective later on. Also, the Shaolin monk that was up on the bridge coming over here and just dropping prone. He wants to keep this model alive because he'd like to use him the following turn for the smoke. He doesn't want to lose the smoke dispensers too early. Alright, on to 012 turn 1, and we've really only lost the Upsilon and that's it, and even that was a little bit unlucky, so we've got a full plethora of orders to spend. Unfortunately, this list is kind of reliant on this little team here to get work done, and they can't always get that done. My opponent's also running a pretty defensive YuJing list, which is quite hard to crack, and pretty good list, especially for this very passive and defensive mission, so we've got our work cut out for us. Moving around here. Note that, again, Assault Hacker over here who could hack this bot, but it's really not worth revealing him for that. So I'm moving out here, firing my Red Fury at this Guangxi, and Guangxi rolling a 12 for the dodge. That's a crit going up the stairs. So I've been a little bit unlucky with the Upsilon. I've been a little bit lucky with the Gamma surviving as he did, but he wasn't expected to die, and then quite unlucky to not kill a Guangxi here and strip him of an order. So things not going great in terms of dice. Moving around here and unfortunately finding that my opponent has Luna right up here, and that will allow her to see through here. So if I go past, Luna's gonna actually fire a viral rifle and probably kill my serious team. What I do want to do though is move out with the bot there and then move out again and hopefully trigger mad traps and that mine, and it's going to set up for a play later on in the game where I can perhaps move through and grab the objective. And that really only costs me orders. I don't have to lose my Red Fury. So it does that. You can see that the serious bot's moved out here. It just gets hit by that mad trap and by the mine. The other mad trap is too far away on the other side of the building, so he's still got one there. And that's immobilized and rendered unconscious my friendly bot. At this point, I'm just retreating, just running back with serious team, just because I'm going to have 2 more turns after this. Just coming back to this position because I feel like I can do a bit more damage with that Red Fury later on. Note also that the Red Fury is able to cut off this lane here towards my objective, which is situated over this side of the deployment zone. So that's another arrow to use in that position. Gangbuster moving ever so slightly just to reposition the mad traps. One of them is going to hit this Shaolin as it comes down the stairs when it goes impetuous, so that's also a plus. Okay, so putting people in suppression fire, we've got Gangbuster and Red Fury Serious over here, and that's about the end of the turn, unfortunately. Not a very impressive turn at all. My opponent with Impetuous now moving out, Guangxi here. He's going to be jumping over the parapets here with his Shaolin Monk, and that is going to be seen by the Gamma. And we've got another guy coming up the stairs over here, throwing a smoke grenade on top of the platform as well, without any arrows contesting him. So this guy coming around over this side, over the building, gets hit by the Mad Trap and by the Gamma, doesn't get the smoke grenade off, and dies at that point. So he's unconscious there. My classified is the Extreme Prejudice one, though, so that might be quite useful there in case the game turns out to be more of the Drury style game where neither of us gets an objective. Having the classified is going to be a big deal. This Guangxi to the left, advancing a bit further forward with his Impetuous. Okay, so here comes the play. Shaolin Monk has already got this smoke down. There's a bit of a gap here, so he's able to plant another smoke. This is going to allow him to come a lot more closer to my objective and detonate a lot of my mad traps with his Shaolin Monk, and that's the initial play here. I think with Group 2's orders, if I recall correctly. So he's moving his Shaolin in. Nothing really to worry about in terms of AROs. I do have this serious spot over here, but he's not going to be able to see through smoke. Guangxi coming a lot closer to his position, so if I do move out next turn around the corner, there is going to be a chain rifle waiting for me. That'll happen possibly in my next turn. Okay, so Shaolin Monk here, moving and dodging. He fails the dodge, but passes the BTS check against the Mad Trap, so unfortunately is not glued in place, which is kind of annoying. Continues moving through, getting some more smoke down next to the platform, and this is important. He's got to pass some checks to be able to do this. He's got to not get killed by the Mad Traps. He's got to pass the smoke throws, but all going according to plan to get the smoke down, and that's going to cut off line of sight from a lot of different angles, from a lot of different people as well. Flash pulse spot and everything. And note that I do have a flash pulse able to fire from this side over here, but we forgot about it for one order, which was kind of painful. So this Shaolin Monk moving to the left, moving to the right, and he's going to set off this Mad Trap over here, and this one on top of the building as well. And that will finally clear out all of the Mad Traps, allowing him to move in with another model to collect the beacon and run away. We've got a Gangbuster in position over here, which had set up suppression fire. He now has to change facing, so he's going to cover this direction just to make him a bit more useful. Note that there's a Guilong forward observer on top of that platform who's about to activate. So there's the Mad Trap going off from the side, and we now have a Guilong moving into position. That's this guy here. He comes into a position where he can see the Dakini TAC bot and has a Gotham, and of course with MSV1 and a combi rifle and surprise shot, that's going to be pretty good bit of action there for our Guilong. Unfortunately, the Guilong does get a bit unlucky and knocks the Dakini back. Dakini manages to dodge back with a crit or something, or just a failed guts, leaving the Guilong right there. Guilong then moves over to the side after, dealing with our friendly Dakini over there. Moves around to take on this this Gangbuster, who promptly rolls a crit with his SMG and blasts him. So this is a very lucky situation for me. One dice just getting a crit. Really, really good there. Note that my opponent was lucky earlier in the game with his Cien Warrior versus my Upsilon, and was lucky with his Guangxi dancing away. Those weren't maybe as significant as this. This is quite a big deal. So I keep my Gangbuster in play, but it's not going to stop him from getting to the objective, so not super important. So like sort of going both ways. I'm feeling like some of my shooting's going well, some of his is going well. It's hard to really say that one person is very clearly ahead. Cien Warrior now moving out yet again just to face off against this this Gamma, and the Gamma is able to get knocked down to NWI and guts prone behind the objective, behind the truck, I should say. So that takes him a few more orders, but now the Gamma's not even providing any arrows whatsoever. That allows him to move in with the Liberto, coming a bit closer towards this objective, which is now completely concealed by smoke. I do not have an Upsilon, so no mad traps, nothing that can arrow this. And we have the Liberto represented by this character here, whatever her name is. And as she's moving in, planting a mine there, coming to grab the objective, moving back, running back to the deployment zone, planting another mine as she moves across. And that allows my opponent to end the turn with the beacon captured all the way back to the deployment zone and a lot of mines there to defend. So it's a really strong play, good turn for YuJing, and puts him in the lead. Now, I'm not super worried about this because I do have an ace up my sleeve, and that is the Delta. So long as I'm sufficiently lucky to land the Delta, and it looks like he's got no regular hacker for hack transport, I can drop him in on my final turn, shoot the Liberto with a boarding shotgun or Panzerfaust, hopefully in the back, and kill him. And in my follow-up turn here, I'm hopefully going to grab the classified. That actually gives me a path to victory. I may even be able to use the final turn to run over there with something and grab the beacon. We'll see. So 012 turn 2 is now beginning. The Gamma is able to move over and fire at his Shen Warrior. Now, this is pretty crazy because I'm throwing 5 dice here. Shen Warrior is right over here in cover, and he's firing back, netting a 14 on 1 dice. I've got 14 on, 5 dice. So if my opponent gets a little bit unlucky here and loses 2 wounds, he'll go into his final turn being in loss of lieutenant, meaning he's not really going to be able to complete his classified. He's not going to be able to set up much of a defense for the Liberto. I might be able to move through, steamroll, grab the objective, and just win. So my opponent, taking some risks here. We talk about him being unlucky with the Gamma blasting his Guilang. A little bit unlucky in a couple of other spots as well. Especially with the Gamma defending so well previous turn, but he's sort of really flirting with danger here if he gets unlucky in this particular situation. Like, let's say that we play out the last turn and the Guilang just kills the Gangbuster as we expected him to, but then I suddenly get unlucky on this particular specific face-to-face roll and inflict 2 wounds, then my chances of winning suddenly become very, very high. What happens though is the Shen Warrior takes just 1 wound, tanks the other armor save, and goes prone after that, meaning that no more ARO, but he does survive. The Gangbuster now moving and standing up, and there's no arrows to this as I move across here. Major Luna is blocked off by all this paraphernalia up the top. So the plan is to go over to this unconscious Shaolin monk and get the classified. So stands up here, firing the SMG at the Guangxi in the distance, trying to rip him up with shock rounds. We do eventually manage to do that. And then Gangbuster coming over here. I've got to actually pass a willpower +3 check, but that's hitting on something like a 16 or a 17. And the classified objective is completed. So that's great. There he is on the top of the building. I'm now attempting to move out again with this guy, and knowing that I've got a 1 more turn after this, I'm trying to soften him up as much as possible to make that last push into his territory more relevant. Note that we both forgot about our data trackers until like mid-first turn, so he's chosen his Shen Warrior as the data tracker, I've chosen my lieutenant, the Alpha, as the data tracker. Really only relevant if you manage to pick something up and move it back, or if you use your data tracker as the model going over to grab the objective. So this time the Red Fury does, I believe, destroy the Guangxi in the distance. So moving around here, I'm finding that if I move out here, we're definitely going to get shot by Luna. But it's at the point where I kind of want to bait Luna out. If she reveals, I could fire at her with either the Gamma or the Dakini TACbot. And then if Luna misses because of my mimetism, for example, I might be able to jump through here and take out something like another Guangxi, Celestial Guard, or even discover this camera marker over this side. And that will definitely help matters. So I'm going to sacrifice this model, moving out initially to come in line of sight of just this Guangxi. Luna does indeed take the bait and fire at me. Miraculously, the Sirius Trooper survives both the chain rifle and the viral rifle shot, amazingly, but doesn't even kill the Guangxi. So a very pillow-fisted order. We try it again after Luna reveals here. You can see her shot at my Sirius in the distance. She is revealed now. So Sirius trying it again, and this allows me to move into a position where I can see both the Guangxi and the Celestial Guard here. So ripping out the Red Fury and annoyingly only managing to kill a Celestial Guard, nothing else, and the Sirius does die at this point to the combination of the chain rifle and the viral rifle. However, the card has been played and Luna is out in the open, so we put assisted fire onto the Dakini attack bot with the help of my Spec Ops, now moving around, retaining cover side this crate to fire up at Luna, who's over there. I am -1 dice because of the saturation zone from the planter, but we're both -3 for the forest. He's -3 for my mimetism. I'm ignoring cover. Odds are pretty good, and the Dakini does destroy Major Luna. Unfortunately, not the same Major Luna as my last bat rep, because that was amazing. This one goes down pretty handily. We then have the Dakini sitting up over here to fire at this Quangxi in the distance, but unfortunately doesn't manage to kill it for some reason. And that's really about it. So we've got the final YuJing turn. And we've got a camo token moving up here with Climbing Plus, moving around towards the Gangbuster, and I think this is going to allow me to recall the fact that, yes, this is actually the Zensha, not the assault hacking Guilang. The assault hacker Guilang, if there was one, would have been further towards his deployment zone. I can't even remember, to be honest. Maybe he had something off the table. So Zensha moves through, gets a surprise attack on this guy, who really only has a submachine gun to defend himself, and it does manage to kill the Gangbuster pretty handily. And then he's able to move his Liberto to safety. Note that it started there, moves around here, and it's going to come up the stairs. Now, I was watching that carefully because, as we know, I'm planning on staying quiet about my Delta and coming in later in the game. I just want to pause this for a second and just close this really quickly and come back to the opening photo. So note that when the Helot started, it moved over here to grab my objective and then came back again and was hiding in this specific spot here. What I was going to do was drop my Delta there, where it was actually going to be out of the line of sight of everybody, and then just peek around the corner and fire at the Liberto there and destroy him so that he wouldn't be holding my beacon. Now what's happened in this final turn is that he's going to be moving the Liberto and the beacon around to this staircase, which is actually just as good for me because I can now drop the Delta here and fire at him through that angle. So I just wanted to show you guys that diagram because it's going to come up in the next number of photos, right? So we'll just come back down to where we were. We've got the Zensha blasting my friend here, and then we've got the Liberto moving up to the back of the stairs here behind the position of the Zanying and the YuJing Spec Ops. You can see the wounded data tracker Xian Warrior Lieutenant bleeding on top of the building. So there we go there, and he's also moved his Zanying over to this point just to try and watch out for enemies and provide arrows to defend his beacon. There you go, and also his Spec Ops, so everybody's just hanging tight for the final ditch assault. Zensha over here making the play, moving out, and we're avoiding the Gamma. The Gamma goes for a discover, but doesn't really matter. He does drop prone as he's walking across this building here. So we've got the Zensha around here trying to cross this and get out of line of sight of the Gamma, and does so successfully. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to move past here and sneak over to my side of the table, where he will get into base contact with this piece of scenery, and he has, I think, sabotage, or not sabotage, mapping, or something that involves him coming in contact with a piece of scenery firmly in my deployment zone, which he now manages to do, and he passes this check, and he's able to get his classified as well, which means that it's going to be a draw, unless it's going to be a draw even if I kill the guy holding his beacon, unless I go for his beacon as well, so bear that in mind. Note that he also moves out with mapping completed. It was mapping, and goes after my lieutenant to put me in lost lieutenant. Does easily destroy the alpha lieutenant and puts me in lost lieutenant for the final turn of the game, but it doesn't matter. All I really need to do is drop the Delta, which happens 75% of the time after putting up control jump because he has no hack transport. The beautiful Delta comes in at the back here, drops down, and then moves around, just picking around enough the corner to fire its boarding shotgun long range. Annoyingly, the Liberto has hyperdynamics, which makes it pretty easy for him to dodge out of the way of this, so it's quite a difficult maneuver here for me to actually do. But the boarding shotgun lands home and the Liberto is destroyed, which means that it is a draw between 012 and YuJing. So, good game in some respects, not a very good game in other respects. It was a little bit pillow-fisted and a bit boring, not a lot of direct action there. And of course, you can see how frustrating this mission can be in terms of some factions having more smoke, more jammers, more mad traps, more mines, more whatever it may be. Second turn can also be kind of an anticlimax if you just kill the guy holding the beacon, because Your opponent put all of that work into it, all for you to just show up and just shoot something like this. So it may just end up being about the classified. I would have won this game if my opponent had a very difficult classified to complete. I would have lost the game if I had a really difficult classified to complete. So there you go. If you're playing in a tournament that features this mission, as we're about to, think carefully about, the ability for your faction and your list to be able to complete this satisfactorily, because if there are other people in the field just crushing it and winning 10-0, and you're winning by like 1 objective point, you're really going to be giving up a lot in the standings. So there is that. This particular game, just reflecting on it, I don't feel that either of us got exceptionally lucky. I mean, there were moments where I crit with my Gangbuster, or I failed to kill a Cien, or I managed to land the Delta and I managed to kill Liberto, or I lose my Upsilon. Those moments were significant, but you're going to expect some of those swings in every game of infiNity. I felt that my opponent's list was better than mine for the purposes of this mission. I kind of wrote the list in mind for just having a Gamma in there because I painted it, and then didn't really revise it very much for this particular mission. I also think that O12 as a faction for the Spec Ops format, not that great. There are better things you can do with Spec Ops out there with other factions, I feel. So my opponent's list was a bit better. His play was okay. I thought it was pretty decent. My play, was alright, but I didn't do anything particularly flashy or spectacular. I might have been able to deploy my Upsilon in a position to hold off his push onto my objective rather than risking it, washing the table, but I felt like it's pretty decent to put the Upsilon out there, because you're very rarely going to take hits that are going to completely remove you. And hey, if I'd won that face-off with a stun round, the Cien Warrior would have been shut down, and I would have had a really strong opening part of the game. But hey, just a fun one, and I think you'll see a bit more of a serious list from me when we actually do play this mission at the event next month. In the meantime, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll get back to my unboxing of Operation Wildfire.